Good evening, welcome everyone. Now that we're all settled in, welcome to our 200th, that's a really difficult thing to say. Our 200,000th Little Free Library celebration. I hope you've been able to enjoy yourself so far this evening here at the Science Museum. When I was thinking a little bit about Commons, struck a little bit about what a great place, right, to celebrate, books and the opportunity and the potential of what books can do, in here in the Science Museum. So we're excited about that. Here's a plan for tonight, and we, as I was telling Kate earlier, we kind of roll with things a little bit here at the Little Free Library. We're going to have a few conversations and presentations. We have a video. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how we all can be involved in moving things forward as we think about getting to the next 200,000 Little Free Libraries. Yeah. But before we do that, it's important that I thank our sponsors that have made tonight's opportunity or tonight's event a success. And I need to read them, otherwise I'll forget somebody. Brave North Technology, Legal for Good, Pack Properties, Pure Partners, Red Path, Thrift Books, Unreal, and the Allegra downtown St. Paul, and all of these folks are integral parts of what we do in our support, whether it's printing things, giving strategic advice, and making sure that our emails come in unfettered, as they say. I also want to recognize, and some of you may have heard or seen in our emails, that we are placing 200 Little Free Libraries at Title I schools across the country, and each one of those will have 200 books placed in them. And yeah, if you do the math, last I checked was 40,000. And so I want to thank Penguin Random House for providing all of those books for us. That's huge. And I'd also like to thank more of our financial sponsors, that's Books on Band and Mortensen. Mortensen's folks are here today, so thank you for doing that. And it's exciting, we're on process to ship the first 100 Little Free Libraries next month, so it's exciting to be able to do that. So here we are. We have an extraordinary moment here. We're here tonight to celebrate I think something that's truly remarkable, 200,000 Little Free Libraries around the world. And I think we would just take a little bit of a moment and pause and think a little bit about that and let that number sink in. I was kind of like you start counting and you'd be there for a while when you count all of them one by one. And that's, 200,000 beacons of hope, curiosity, and opportunity. It's 200,000 doors, right, to adventure, knowledge, and possibility. It's really something spectacular in my mind. And when we place a Little Free Library in a neighborhood, it's more than offering books. Now, books are critically important, and that's why we're shipping 40,000, right, to 200 libraries across the country. But we're creating access, right? And it's access that it's not only access to those books, but we're opening doors that would otherwise be closed. And in this day and age, more doors need to be opened than closed, that's for sure. We're sparking a love of reading. I had the opportunity quickly to chat with Kate, and one of our earlier stewards, and the excitement about reading books and the discovery process of what happens when one finds a Little Free Library, a book in a Little Free Library is really exciting. And that love of reading can transform a child's future. It can uplift a struggling community, and it can bring people together in great ways that otherwise are not happening. So book access is all important. It's a path to literacy, and that literacy is a foundation to opportunity, right? There is no way and that one can succeed as being a citizen in this country without the ability to be able to read, right? That's the prerequisite to being engaged as a citizen. Reading is all important about that. A book in the hands of a child, it's a tool of empowerment. We talk a lot about that and the opportunity to see what you can be, right? Not restricted by who and what is around you, but see what is possible. We'll have some words from Dr. Turner tonight where the 200,000th Little Free Library was placed in a nearby elementary school, and he can share with you the sparkle in the children's eyes when they were able to find and see a new book and from a Little Free Library. It's just spectacular. It's the best part of my job, frankly, is that opportunity. But here's the reality, right? In today's world, and unfortunately in this country, millions of people here in our own country don't have access to books. That isn't acceptable for our organization. That's why we do what we do, and that's why our mission matters. With every single Little Free Library that you help us place, we're breaking down those barriers to book access. We're leveling the playing field. So no matter where you live or where you were born or the income that you have the opportunity to get access to books that are compelling to you, that relate to you. And then the possibilities are endless in terms of what that brings. So, a little bit, I've chatted a little bit with you, some of you here earlier today. This is also a little bit of a personal milestone for me today. It's been almost 6 years since I joined Little Free Library and this incredible organization. And I will be retiring soon. But I want to tell you briefly that I cannot be prouder of what we've been able to accomplish in those years with the support and help of the stewards, like those that are here in the room, like the volunteers that are also here in the room, with our staff, a great staff that put up with me for the last 6 years to be able to accomplish what we're doing, our partners that are here and our financial supporters and our donors. It has been spectacular, and it's been a collective effort to make the Little Free Library Network thrive. And you are the heart of Little Free Library. So, tonight we're here to celebrate where we've been, but also to look forward. As I mentioned, 200,000 more Little Free Libraries would be a cool thing. So to those, to the next one, to the next million books that we've shared, and to the next set of lives that we'll be able to touch. So I'd like to thank you for my opportunity to be part of this journey. Thank you all for believing in the mission, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for your generosity and support. Together we are building something that will last for generations, and I can't think of any better legacy than that. So thank you. So enough of my pontificating. We have a wonderful guest here tonight. I'd like to take the honor of introducing you to tonight's main event, Newbery Award-winning author Kate DiCamillo. She's the author of many books for young readers. Her books have been awarded the Newbery Medal, the Newbery Honor, the Boston Globe Horn Book Award, and the Theodore Geisel Medal and Honor. Kate is a national ambassador for young people's literature at MRI, appointed by the Library of Congress. A Florida native of Florida. And I haven't been having anything to drink yet either. Kate now lives in Minneapolis, so please join me in welcoming Kate DiCamillo.
How are y'all doing? Good. I can't remember when I said, yes, please, I would like to do this, but I was saying this, it was a while ago. And I like to come and talk to people about books, and generally, what I do is wing it. But things have changed since I accepted this invitation, and this is a different world. And so I thought, I better write something that matters a little bit. So I've got a little speech. And then if y'all have questions, who thinks they might have questions? There's one, all right. Okay. We'll do that real quickly, and then I'll step off the stage. Does anybody have any complaints about that agenda? All right. Here are, I gotta put the reading glasses on because I swear every time I put the reading glasses on, I think of, this was 10 years ago, I was in South Dakota, and I was in this enormous auditorium with 900 kids. A little girl raised her hand and said, "How old are you?" I said, I'm 50. And she said, "But how did that happen?" I'm like, I don't know. And I think about her every time I put my reading glasses on. here are some titles of books that I've pulled out of Little Free Libraries in just the last couple of weeks. The Mother Tongue, English and How It Got That Way by Bill Bryson. Jackaroo by Cynthia Voigt. Half Magic by Edward Eager, which I'd never read when I was a kid. Anybody read that book? It's so funny, yeah. Ancient Light by John Banville. Galileo's Daughter, a historical memoir of science, faith, and love by Dava Sobel. From my house in the Kingfield neighborhood of Minneapolis, I can walk for 15 minutes in any direction and find at least 30 Little Free Libraries. I have 30 in here because I had put 40 in here, and the friend who I had proof this for me said, I don't believe that it's 40. And I'm like, I think it's more than, but I put 30 in just to, like, you know, make the copy editor happy. I mean, it's like, Jenny Buck, you're in my neighborhood. Don't you think that's true? It's at least, I mean, so, and I walk a lot. So I never walk past a Little Free Library without stopping to see what's inside. I found books that I've never heard of, books that I've been wanting to read, books that I needed without knowing that I needed them. I found books that made me laugh and think, books that made me marvel and wonder, books that comforted me and offered me a way forward. And I found community. I don't know how many times I've stood in front of these little boxes of wonder and talked with neighbors and strangers about a certain book and why it matters. I like to think of Little Free Libraries as lamps that illuminate our streets, our communities, our minds. Just yesterday, I finished the book about Galileo and his daughter. Galileo, who was brought before the Inquisition for putting forth the idea that the earth was not the center of the universe, but instead revolved around the sun. This book, Dialogue on the Two Chief World Systems, was banned for 200 years. 200 years. We're living through a time again where science is under attack and where the freedom to read is at risk. These little free libraries and the wonders and histories and stories they contain matter more than ever. They form a lighted path in a dark world. They truly are beacons. Okay, any questions before I sit down? I just want to say thank you to all of you. Know, when I get, when you publish a book, you get author copies, is what they call them. And it's usually like, I think I get like 40 copies of the most recent book. I sign them and I walk around 15 minutes in any direction, and I can get rid of all 40 of those books. I just put them in the Little Free Libraries, and it makes me so happy to do it. So I am there as a writer, but I'm mostly there as a reader and as a community member, and that's what they do. Is these little boxes make community and they make readers, and it's just astonishing to me that I read that Galileo book now. And because it seems so incredibly relevant. Should I sit down now? No. Okay, well, somebody, yeah, you said you had a question. Yeah.
Okay, our son is, one of our sons is a talented writer and a talented artist. And for the life of us, we can't get him to sit down and just try to write and publish a children's book. And we think he'd be very successful at it. Were you an instant success?
Y'all heard that question? Yeah. So talented, how old is your?
34.
34, yeah. Well, I want to tell you about my instant success, which was me, and Lisa Beck, you can, like, that's a friend that I've had for 30 years. She can testify to this part of my life. I spent most of my 20s wearing a black turtleneck and telling everybody that I was a writer, and not writing anything. Nothing, just dreaming about it. And so it wasn't until I turned 30 that I actually started to do the work of and for me, it was like that thing of just picking a discrete goal, 2 pages a day, and I could meet that goal even though I was working full time, and just doing a little bit of the work every day. And then sending the work out to the world, which is where you get to the rejection letters, you know, which for me it was 473 of them, so yeah. So I had that number on a PowerPoint when I talked to a group of kids, And I asked them to guess how many I got, and you know, some joke, you know, will say 5, 7 rejection letters. And then that number will come up 473, and they'll scream. You know, like, what is wrong with you? And I'll always say to them, imagine, I've stood under this number literally all over the world. Imagine what would have happened if I'd stopped at 472. It depends on you. It's whether or not you're gonna give up. So, okay, tell your son that, yeah. Anybody else? You know, it's actually like rejection is a good thing for us to talk about right now. Yeah, because I'm gonna get pulled off the stage, yeah.
I'm just trying to help you navigate.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right,
right
yes.
here.
How many books have I written? I think I've written 40 now, and 35 have been published, and I've got 5 that are in the works. Do you think that's a lot or a little? Okay, great. Sometimes I think it's not enough. Okay, one more question, and then I'll sit down because I know there's a video, and yeah.
What do you remember reading as a child?
What do I remember reading as a child? What don't I remember reading as a child? I was a kid who lived to read, just like I'm an adult who lives to read. And I made my way through the public library, I made my way through the school library. I was very, very lucky that I had a mother who read to me, bought me books, and took me to the library. And I was also very, very lucky in that I had teachers who read aloud to me in class. So how many teachers are here right now? Any teachers? Do y'all, do you read aloud? Can we have a round of applause for those? I love the actual book, and when I knew who I was in the world was when Miss Alice at the Cooper Memorial Public Library came out from behind the circulation desk when I was checking out my books. It was a 4-book maximum. And she said, you, to the librarian who was checking me out, you may waive the 4-book maximum for Kate. She can check out as many books as she likes. She is a true reader. And then I knew who I was. So thank you to the librarians too. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, how do I follow that?
Thank you, Kate, so much for the stories that you've written that we've all enjoyed. Your characters are so rich and have such depth, and they pull us into the stories, and then we feel our souls growing as we read about them, and you make us better for it. So thank you for your gift.
So a lovely thing to say.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I actually wasn't going to do this, but I have a question because someone, when they checked in, said they had driven all the way from Iowa to be here tonight. Do we have any other out-of-state people that came tonight? Oh my goodness. Where did you come from?
Texas.
Texas? And
Seattle.
Seattle? Wow.
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee? Okay, fantastic.
That's a good thing.
You were the island. Thank you. Well, doesn't that just say so much about what Little Free Library is and who all you wonderful people are who love them, share them, support them, put them in your yards, and give back to the community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for devoting your time to Little Free Library. I am Nancy Wulkan. I am the chairman of the board of Little Free Library, and I'm delighted to be here tonight. In 2018, I installed the first of many Little Free Libraries. This was in my local Chicago park, right in the heart of downtown. And I'm sure any of you who are stewards in this group know that excitement and anticipation after you dig that hole and you put that book box up and you're waiting for that next day and you wonder who's gonna visit it and how will it be used. Well, what I didn't realize when I put in this little library was how it was gonna change my life forever, and how it would impact and change the lives of so many people that visited it. I'd like to tell you 3 quick stories about my first week with my little library in Chicago. The first day I went back to visit it, there was a group of unhoused people that were living in that park. And when I showed up with my bag of books, they swarmed around me, and they were so excited, and their faces were glowing. They were like, "What books do you have? What books do you have?" And I started sharing the books with them, and they said, "Thank you so much for putting this box in here. You know, when you live in a park and you don't have an address, you can't get a public library card. We don't have a home to have books, so now we have books again." And I went home that afternoon with a list of book recommendations they gave me. A request from, can you get a book by this author? Have you read this series? Can you bring it? So I was overwhelmed. Later that week, when I went to restock my first little library, there was a family sitting on a park bench right near it. And as I got there, they came over to me and they just said, thank you for what you've done." And I said, "What?" They said, "Our daughter's been going through cancer treatments right here at the Children's Hospital across the street. And we've been coming to this hospital every week for months. And when we got to the park today, we saw this box of books. And it was such a bright spot and such a joyful thing in such a dark time. So thank you for that." Obviously I cried, as I am now. Then later this week, and I'm not making this up, this was all in the first week. Later that week, I was walking down the street and I saw this wonderful young little boy skipping down the sidewalk, clutching a picture book in his arms to his chest. And he was skipping with his mom. And I knew that picture book because I had just put it in the little library a couple hours ago. So as I crossed paths with them, I stopped and I said, "You've been to the little book box, haven't you?" And the boy stopped and he looked at me with these wide eyes full of wonder and he said, "Are you the book lady?" There is one thing that connects all 3 of these stories, and it's joy. The joy of having books again when you haven't had them for so long. The joy of positive connections in a sometimes dark time. The joy of finding something new and all your own in a totally unexpected place. This is the magic and the power of a little free library. Joy is what's connecting us all here again tonight. The joy of writing and sharing stories with others like those that wonderful Kate DiCamillo and so many authors write and share in Little Free Libraries. The joy of powerful partnerships with so many of you as community partners, corporate sponsors, Little Free Library stewards, generous individuals, book lovers, librarians, educators. These are the partnerships that are so powerful and help us to help the communities we love and to amplify the work that we each do individually as a greater community. There's the joy of a young reader opening a door to a box and discovering just the book that she didn't know she wanted, that reflects back exactly who she is in her true authentic self. Little Free Libraries, they do so many things in the spaces they occupy, and now 200,000 spaces. I mean, I can't get my head around that, and more, as I was saying to Dr. Turner. But the most powerful impact that the Little Free Libraries have is their gift of joy. So tonight, I want to thank each and every one of you, and anybody who couldn't be here tonight, for being a part of this journey of joy, and for giving back and just giving the gift of joy to others. So thank you very much. It's an honor to serve this chair. Thank you. So now, while we're in a moment of celebration and person who's been at the helm of Little Free Library as we've progressed from 100,000 near when Greg joined us to this 200,000 milestone today. Greig Metzger, our wonderful executive director, will be retiring in June, as he mentioned. And Greg has been the guiding force through this monumental growth, overseeing implementation or enhancements of innovative programs like our mobile application, our Read and Color program, our Teen Little Free Library, yay volunteers, the Indigenous Library program that's been enhanced, and the steward services that have grown and expanded. Greg, we want to thank you wholeheartedly for your leadership and your mentorship, and we wish you good health and great joy as you continue your journey.
So, 2 seconds, just quickly. I am incredibly fortunate, as I said earlier, about being charged and responsible for an organization that has such incredible people. But I also want to acknowledge and recognize that my love of books and reading came from being a very fortunate person who had a mom and a dad that loved reading, and a grandmother that loved reading, and every birthday or Christmas was a book. And I just ask you to think a little bit about, as we consider and going forward, all of those people that don't have that opportunity to necessarily have a book at their birthday or a book at their Christmas or be able to find books. So thank you for the surprise, both of you. It's an honor working with you, Nancy, and working with the incredible group of people that we have here. So thank you.
Yay, Kate, we did it. Yay. Okay, now I have the great pleasure and honor to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Kenneth Turner. Dr. Turner was born and raised in the Rondo area of St. Paul, and he brings a wealth of experience in helping all students feel appreciated and respected and accepted for who they are. Dr. Turner has served as an educator for 32 years and worked in St. Paul Public Schools for the past 6 years as a teacher, a leader, and an administrator. He most recently served as assistant principal for American Indian Magnet School. Currently, Dr. Turner is the principal at Benjamin E. Mays IB World School. Did I say that right?
You did, yeah.
Which, as we mentioned before, is the home and recipient of the 200,000 Little Free Library. I went and saw it today, and that tag is just glowing with that 200,000 number. And he was a wonderful partner in making this happen and getting it done. So thank you so much, Dr. Turner, and we'd love to.
Well, it's kind of hard to beat someone who's retiring soon and an author, so I'll do my best. I'm very blessed to be a recipient of this Little Free Library for our scholars. And one of the things that, even though I get to speak tonight, it didn't happen with just me. And so she's not here tonight, but our assistant principal, Ms. Beck, phenomenal administrator, who was also key in making sure that we got stuff done. Sometimes I wasn't there, so she got stuff done. Our librarian, Ms. Fisher, who was instrumental in making sure that our library was culturally relevant, because before she came, you might find a book in there from 1972. So she came in and made sure that our library was up to par. And I also want to make sure that I recognize our school clerk, Ms. Johnson. She is the face and the boss of the building. And so I wanted to make sure that she was recognized for all the work that she does as well. So I thank y'all. For us, it is a pleasure to, if everybody would have saw our children on the day there we go, that our babies are there. It was an outstanding thing for our scholars, and some of the scholars that you see there, we had 53 scholars And out of those 53 scholars, some of those were from pre-K all the way up to 5th grade. And I didn't know, because Ms. Fisher told me about this, that our students, majority of them, we had a couple of them that have already checked out 171 books, and there also are some that have checked out over 100 books. And the key thing, and I didn't know this, and my area superintendent was there because it was good kudos, that Benjamin E. Mays Ivy World School is the highest school with checkouts in any of our schools in St. Paul Public Schools. So that's our baby. And so that's our dedicated scholars, our dedicated teachers that make sure that our students have what they need every day. This event that we had was instrumental for those 53 scholars that were there. Were able to see it, were able to unveil it, and then the rush of the other 350 students that came up the stairs to receive a free book. I think the snacks was probably the better part. But they got a book, and everybody walked away with something. Matter of fact, we were giving parents some books. So the thing is that in our school, literacy is number one. Literacy is our next currency. Literacy is power. And as we talk about in our building, if you can't read, it limits the things that you can do in the future. And so we make sure that every Friday we have drop everything and read. And that's essential. So if I've got a meeting, I gotta give me a minute, I gotta do drop everything and read. So not only is it the scholars, but it's everybody in the building has a book, is reading with our students. So I guess I should have raised my hand when they said, are there some teachers? Yes, I'm still a teacher. Just I'm an administrator now, but I am still a teacher. And so reading is those things that we are passionate about. And I want to make sure that if anything, our scholars walk out with an understanding that if you can read, the world is yours. Now, math, yeah, we can make it through without that. But if you can read, that's the main thing. And so one of our mottos, since Dr. Benjamin E. Mays is who our school is named after, so one of our things is it's not a disgrace not to reach for the stars, but it is a disgrace to have no stars to reach for. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things we say our school challenge every day. And that's the part that sticks with me, and that's the part that sticks with them. It's okay. Some of us have big dreams. Well, I wanted to be an astronaut. That didn't happen. Okay? I wanted to play in the NFL. That didn't happen. But I got an education. Even though I got a doctorate, doesn't mean I'm the smartest person in the room. It just means I had to read a lot, I had to skip a lot of stuff, and sit and write all the time. Okay? So yes, I did write a 156-page book. So that I do have. So that's something I can say. I published the book. So the thing is for us, and I'm very thankful to everybody in this space and in this room, because it is about making sure that all of our children have the access to literacy, regardless of what it is, graphic, whatever they like. We got to make sure that they have access and opportunities to receive that. Now, I'll take the hardest-headed kid in the world, and making sure that they can read is the most important part. And we'll tell their parents too. It is important that they go home and you're reading at least 30 minutes a night. And that's for me as a person who reads 5 books at a time. Okay? But actually I left it in my car. So one of the things when all the students were getting their books, there was one that caught my eye, and it's called Cool Cuts. Okay? And the thing is, when all of our students saw books, they were like, oh, that looks like me. Oh, that looks like me. Oh, there's me. And so all the books were culturally specific to our student population. That was beautiful. And when I picked up Cool Cuts, I'm sorry I left it in the car, but I was going to hold it up and shake it, is that about every haircut in there I've had. So as an adult, I'm looking at this, and my scholars are like, well, Dr. Turner, what's going on with that book? I said, I've had every haircut in here. So some of the terminologies have changed, but a Gumby is still a Gumby, if you know what that is. It's still a haircut. So the thing for our students to walk away with that and come back with the excitement, because they have to walk by that every day. And they see it, and someone asks, can I get a book? Sure. Knock yourself out. And what's important about us, since we are in the Rondo community, where my parents and grandparents and myself were born and raised, it sits in front of that mural. And it's important for our students to see that's us. Now, a day after, the tube broke loose and floated up to the ceiling, so we just had a bunch of zeros. So I the next day I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to leave that, and I kept letting in. I said I was going to take it out. But the thing is, being the 200,000s is like, I mean, I'm still higher on that. When you think about that, I think I was more excited than our students were. So the thing is that milestone to me is an outstanding achievement, not only for the Little Free Library, but for us as a school, and being very thankful. And I made sure that I didn't wear the same color suit that I had when we were there. So I went with gray tonight, not blue. So, but on that, again, I thank everybody on behalf of Benjamin Mays IB World School, our scholars, our student scholars, our parents, and our fabulous educators and everybody else that is there. We thank you to the bottom of our hearts, and we will continue to live up to the motto of the 200,000. So with that, I say good night, and I appreciate everybody's work and efforts. Thank you.